unelected billionaire and his team have been given full and unfettered access to our taxpayer money and our government.
Elon Musk is here to collect on his investment. Yes. He is here to seize power for himself. We are here to fight back.
Yes. Protests are erupting this week across D.C. Democratic members of Congress are sounding the alarm as Elon Musk continues his crusade against the federal bureaucracy. But now, some Republicans are beginning to challenge Musk's authority. The latest point of contention involves USAID, which provides taxpayer-funded humanitarian aid across the globe. Musk, supported by President Trump, abruptly froze the agency's programs and locked employees out of their offices. Overseas, aid workers warn of disease, starvation, and security threats due to the sudden ending of U.S. support. Musk and his allies, including the Trump administration, say USAID has wasted money on progressive social programs untethered to American interests. Joining us to discuss this and more, Jesse Byrnes, senior editor here at The Hill. Jesse, we can talk about soft power here in a second, but first let's talk about the separation of powers. It's Congress that's supposed to control the purse strings, but it sure seems like Elon Musk is in the driver's seat.
And you are seeing members of Congress now, even on the Republican side, who are starting to speak out to some extent. Now, it's typically the people like Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, the ones that have been more comfortable in the past calling out Trump. Broadly, most Republican senators don't want to get on Trump's bad side by undermining him on this topic. But Republicans in Congress are losing their power on this fact. Congress has the power of the purse strings, and when they are trying to get support to pass large pieces of Trump's agenda through Congress, at the same time, Trump, through Elon Musk, the special government employee, now is his title, is trying to put the brakes on spending that Congress has already provided and really undermining their authority in the separation of powers.
You know, it's not just the usual suspects, Murkowski and Collins. Roger Wicker, Republican senator from Mississippi, chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, no dove. He says that USAID is critical to countering China's influence. Is there a risk that the U.S. abandoning the developing world opens a door for countries like China and Russia to fill the void and secure greater access to things like rare earth minerals that are so crucial to U.S. economic and security?
Absolutely. Now, there's definitely Republicans who are saying, you know, USAID needs to have scrutiny on its spending. There needs to be top to bottom review of the programs that it has been administering billions of dollars to. There's widespread agreement among Republicans about that. But there are Republicans who say it does serve a special purpose. The reason that it has not been under the State Department up to date is that it gives it more leeway to actually operate in countries where the United States might have an official line with Iran, for example, that it might take a different tact. And so in places like Africa and South America, places that the United States does want to have that soft power, they are spending money. Ukraine is another good example in Eastern Europe. They are spending billions of dollars to try to administer programs that the United States typically wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And those programs now are at risk of going away if, in fact, USAID is completely shut down.
Yeah, and I actually just came back from Africa, and it's very interesting to see the amount of Chinese influence in building infrastructure projects there. Those are the type of things that the U.S., you know, people like Wicker warn, that kind of soft power becomes influential in this global battle over precious resources.
And Russian influence in the Middle East as well.
Another one of these big ideas from Elon Musk is giving federal workers 8 months severance to quit their jobs. The deadline for that is tomorrow. The reports have been that about 20,000 people so far have accepted. There's also a federal worker hiring freeze set to go in effect on February 8th. Am I going to get my tax returns?
Well, that is certainly a big concern, I think, among a lot of people. Now, the IRS is in a little bit of a unique position. They've dealt with hiring freezes in the past. They've had to hire seasonal workers. They've rearranged their personnel to be able to address their workload. But there are concerns around this. There's concerns around just the appropriation of funds that Congress has already approved for all of the federal agencies. And now you have people who 5 months ago were not in positions of power. They don't have security clearances. Musk has a security clearance, but others working we don't understand do. And so, you know, there is real concern that they have the power of the purse string. They're able to freeze funding. And, you know, the White House has said they have only read-only privileges. They can't edit funding right now. But that's certainly something to watch to see if that changes.
There's also growing fears that we're heading for a government shutdown in mid-March. Democrats are fighting with the Trump administration over their efforts to freeze funding. Republicans are infighting over the size and scope of cuts they want to propose. Trump seems to think he has this mandate to enact his agenda, but when it comes to spending, it's not entirely clear what he's going to fight for. Speaker Johnson in a very difficult position. How do you see this playing out over the next few months?
Well, there is real tension and really drama starting to play out in Washington between the House and the Senate, because the House has now for a number of weeks struggled to coalesce the different factions behind a unified strategy on how they're going to pass Trump's agenda. Is it going to be one bill? Is it going to be two bills? And they've really struggled to do that. They've already had to punt on an initial vote on this budget resolution to actually lay the framework. They haven't agreed on the top line for all of this. And there's the hard line, the fiscal hawks really want deep cuts in federal spending. And there's broad disagreement over that. And now we're seeing the Senate Republicans start to threaten to take the lead on this. That's something the House doesn't want to happen. And so there is real tension there. Trump has signaled he doesn't really care how it gets done. He just wants it to get done. But they do risk running up against a deadline of, this first 100 days is really where they have the most juice to get this work done. And there's now weeks into it.
Do you think Trump will end up going to bat for hardline spending cuts that the Freedom Caucus wants, or is he going to be more inclined to make a deal with the Democrats that's more palatable to moderate Republicans?
Well, for Speaker Johnson, that's why we had Speaker Johnson to begin with. Speaker McCarthy did a deal with Democrats, and that's why he was ousted. So it remains to be seen if that's the route that they would actually go. They've really tried to limit this to staying within the budget reconciliation process would allow them to only use Republican votes, but it's very difficult. They don't have any margin for error really in the House and very little in the Senate. And so, the more likely option is that Trump tries to circle the wagons and get these Republicans to actually come on board. But there are people like Chip Roy who are very vocal and are willing to kind of be more of a maverick when it comes to some of these fiscal issues.
We're following these reports that the Trump administration is working on an executive order that would eliminate the Department of Education. Trump apparently even telling Education Secretary nominee Linda McMahon to use her position to dismantle it. Let's take a listen.
We're ranked at the bottom of the list. We're ranked very badly. And what I want to do is let the states run schools. I told Linda, I hope you do a great job and put yourself out of a job. I want her to put herself out of a job.
This is an issue that conservatives have been working on for a long period of time. One, can Trump do it through executive order? And two, what would it look like if all power for education went to states?
Republicans have been trying to dismantle the education department for decades, and they would need Congress to actually act to remove the actual department. That being said, Trump is going to try unilaterally to dismantle many of the programs, try to freeze a lot of the funding, and use personnel decisions, gutting the agency to try to enact some of that change. Congress, at the end of the day, would actually have to act for it to have any type of real permanent effect moving forward. But certainly the administration, this is something, they haven't scheduled the hearing for Linda McMahon, the education pick, and that's all of these reports now coming out about what the administration wants to do are going to come up during that confirmation hearing.
Yeah, I wonder if this is another example of where people would broadly, probably in the public, support belt tightening in the government, but then if there's a major program that benefits their community that's eliminated, they could be like, wait, what?
That's right. It shifts the burden to the states and the state education departments. And certainly there are some states that would be open to that and they would actually prefer that. But then it's a question of who controls the federal funds and how that is administered as well.
Pam Bondi has been confirmed to be the Attorney General. She was sworn in earlier today. Trump charged her with restoring trust in the Department of Justice, and she seemed to echo that mission statement. Let's take a listen.
I will restore integrity to the Justice Department, and I will fight violent crime throughout this country and throughout this world and make America safe again.
Do you think she's going to spend time really going after drug cartels, human smugglers, pushers of fentanyl, or is she going to be inclined to go after perceived enemies of Trump?
I think it's going to be both. There's a lot of pressure on her. It was very clear during the confirmation hearings, although she was able to really stymie a lot of those criticism on whether she's going to retaliate on the behalf of Trump and vowing that degree of independence. But the reality that Trump's personal lawyers are now slotted to be in other senior positions at the Department of Justice, this will be something to watch in the coming months. And there's real potential here for there to be second guessing among senior staff on the priorities that the Department of Justice is actually executing on. That being said, expect to hear a lot more about cartels and migration and trying to stop the flow of fentanyl. That's been something that previous administrations have been trying to crack down on. We expect that to continue. At the same time, watch for anything that could have any implications for Trump himself.
All right, that's all I got for you, Jesse Byrnes. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Joe.
Egg prices are soaring, and popular breakfast favorite Waffle House is the latest restaurant to be hit by the increased sticker shock. The breakfast chain is adding a 50-cent surcharge across the nation to every egg ordered. The changes took effect Monday, according to Waffle House. Egg prices are currently soaring because of inflation and the bird flu epidemic. Waffle House says the surcharge is meant to be temporary but cannot predict how long it will last. A police raid in New York's Diamond District could shed light on a string of burglaries at the homes of pro athletes, including Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow and Kansas City stars Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. The FBI and New York police raided a storefront located in Manhattan and arrested 2 men connected to the business. According to court documents, investigators accused the men of purchasing luxury items that they knew were stolen from a South American transnational crime ring, and then reselling the items out of a business in the Diamond District. Investigators are now looking into whether the stolen goods are linked to a string of burglaries that targeted the homes of pro athletes and wealthy individuals. President Trump's 2024 election win has sparked a renewed interest in joining the military. The U.S. Army just announced record-breaking recruiting in December, with thousands signing up to serve. NewsNation's Alina Shirazi breaks down the numbers and how the Army is set to expand basic training to deal with the influx of recruits.
Well, my last report on Army recruiting numbers was over a year ago, and essentially they were struggling to find and keep talent. But now there's been a dramatic reversal of that. December 2024 proved to be the best December in 15 years for the Army. They reportedly enlisted nearly 350 soldiers every single day that month. And the U.S. Army posting on X saying, quote, "Our recruiters have one of the toughest jobs, inspiring the next generation of soldiers to serve. Congratulations and keep up the great work." The Army, hoping to ride this high, is set to significantly expand how many recruits they can send to spring training. By April, the service reportedly expects to have 10 more training units that would allow for up to 9,600 new recruits each year. Looking at numbers from the Army recruiting website we poured through, we did notice there is a trend, a steady increase in the numbers climbing each year, looking at 2022 to 2024. In 2023, there were a number of initiatives to try and help lower performing recruits, including adding courses like the Future Soldier Prep course to help them meet the academic and physical standards to move on to basic training. Certainly a number of reasons why the Army is seeing these positive changes. The new administration taking some credit for this change. Trump's newly confirmed pick to lead the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth, posting on X saying, quote, "Bottom line, America's youth want to serve under the bold and strong America First leadership of Donald Trump." We heard him attribute these higher numbers to the new administration during his confirmation hearing as well. Hegseth has promised to remove woke programs from the military, a word used to describe an overemphasis on diversity. But Army leaders saying wokeness wasn't a factor in this. We did reach out to the Pentagon for a comment on Hegseth's statements. They say they don't have anything further to add at this time. Drew?
Thank you, Alina Shirazi. That's today's Daily Debrief. I'm Drew Petrimoulx. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hill's YouTube channel. And come back here soon for the intersection between politics and policy.